Welcome back, everybody. You have joined the Web3 Game Development Livestream. So this is the stream where we talk to developers. They're real people building things in Web3 who are making games. This isn't about the speculation, the coin, any of that. We're going to be focused here on what's fun, who's making fun, where are we going from there, what have they learned? A lot of you are game developers yourself. So we want to try to bring you knowledge of other people who have gone through this journey that you might be able to apply to your own journey. So today I've got an awesome guest. I've got Jenna here from Wanderers. Wanderers is a sci-fi universe and game that was born out of that original NFT phase, craze, whatever we want to call it, back around 2021. And they're still chugging away, building things. And we're going to hear from Jenna about what they've learned so far, what they're building today, where it goes next. So Jenna, thanks for joining me here. Why don't we just start first with an introduction of you? I'm always curious, how do people land in this crazy game development industry in blockchain? What were you doing to lead up before like 2021 when you started working on this?
Yeah, thanks, John, for having me. So it's a very good question. I started my career as a CPA way back when, doing tax and audit. And I quickly realized I wanted to be in tech, and I was very entrepreneurial, being in San Francisco. So I jumped into startups and tech, and probably have worked with like 100 different startups over the years from a business and finance perspective. I got into gaming for my first time in 2014 when mobile gaming became a thing, and ran a mobile programmatic marketplace. So saw the potential of monetization and gaming and something taking off and kind of emerging markets. I've taken some travels and hiatuses, and I took one after that gig. And when I was ending my travels, cannabis became legalized in 2016. So I very much wanted to find a way to empower this super plant and, see what was going on there. So I ended up getting into cannabis and helped navigate, cannabis companies going from an unregulated to a regulated market. Ended up working in cannabis for about 5 years with my own company, handling business and finance for about 30 cannabis startups. Then I ended up going to one of my clients who acquired me, called Flowcana. Our mission was really to empower the small sun-grown farmers, regenerative, organic farming, and the real power of the plan up and down the coast of California. So, did that, built out extensive financial systems with cash and and weed. That was really fun, but cannabis kind of hit a wall in the ceiling because you couldn't, cross state lines, and it was really a Fed bet, I guess, and it didn't work out or pan out. And it's still a regulatory, it's a hard industry to operate in. So took another break, and I knew I wanted to get into something that was global and scalable because I like to build, and I didn't want to be capped or, limited. So, at the end of 2020, I just started getting into crypto. As an accountant at heart and a CPA, I understood blockchain very much. And I was like, oh my God, like this is definitely the future. Became an ETH maxi overnight, and NFTs started coming out. I was very excited about that. Interactive entertainment, the possibility to grow a global brand. So jumped into that and ended up getting introduced to Nick, who is the creator and artist and founder of Wanderers NFT collection. I was introduced to him about a month after Wanderers launched in September 2021. And I saw this universe, and I had this vision, and we teamed up, and Wanderers and the future of that entire universe was born. So fast forward though to the game and all of that. Wanderers, one of our biggest holders was Mark of Game 5 Ventures. He was the lead the lead, like the senior advisor to Animoca Brands on their gaming investments. And he was a huge Wanderers holder and saw the art and reached out to us a few months after NFT launch and was like, I love this art. Like, you guys need to build a game. Can we invest? So ended up closing around with GameFi and Animoca Brands to, form WanderLabs, build a video game in partnership with Blowfish Studios. And yeah, here we are.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about things I didn't even know we were going to be talking about today. And this is for our audience as well, by the way. So we've got an awesome audience here. I see that already 300 live viewers have shown up. That is awesome. I love every single one of you who decides to show up live. A ton of you watch this in replay, but the best way to engage with this program is that it's a live program. And when you show up live, what that means is you can post your questions. We answer them, whatever they are. We'll at least bring them up for conversation. So get in there, get in the channel, ask your questions. Actually, if you have a video camera, we're not even against bringing you on camera. Oscar will find you wherever you are, post on there, we'll bring you in. So we're going to be talking about games, NFTs, Web3 journeys, financial networks. Jenna, you have been around all kinds of businesses with really complicated financial dynamics. So cannabis and blockchain and games. Oscar, is cannabis a thing down in Costa Rica, or is it just all the ayahuasca there? What's the deal?
I can neither confirm nor deny anything about the mess in my room right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll just leave that. We'll leave that alone for the moment, Oscar. But I guess, hey, if you have questions about the cannabis industry, that's on the table too today. So we want to welcome everybody in our community to come in and ask. I want to know cannabis and blockchain. What do those two have that's similar?
Well, the Wild West, I would say. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of similarities, but it's very opposite because, blockchain is all digital and cannabis is all physical. But I think the ethos and, the people that are part of these emerging industries are similar. Everyone's kind of like a little quirky and on the cutting edge. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities and differences for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think Jenna just said we're all criminals. No, I'm almost criminal. But we love to, just like Uber kind of pushed the regulatory boundaries early on to find a new market by giving people exactly what they want in a much better way, in the financial terms they want, with the convenience they want. Kind of anytime we're in these new industries that have, I guess, previously either been subject to a lot of regulation or just subject to kind of mass skepticism because people don't understand it quite yet, or just are on the borders of society, where those are kind of some of the similarities. But whether you're big tech like Uber or blockchain or cannabis, I suppose that's kind of the similarity, is just like figuring out how to work within the frameworks that we have already. All right, well, let's switch over to games, but I'm not against people throwing in the cannabis questions. I already see a +1 for Kush from JR Surfer.
OG Kush all day. That's my number one. I don't use cannabis anymore, but OG Kush, number one.
There we go. Okay. Well, let's steer a little bit to the game. Let's talk about Wanderers and what you're doing. I think we have a video we can queue up. Is this a good time to put that into the feed here, just so people maybe get a feel for what you're working on?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we cue that up, Oscar?
Yes, sir. One moment. And it worked. Heavens.
3, 2, 1.
Well, one thing I'm going to say, and it's the last thing about drugs I'm going to say on this one today, other than other questions people ask, is whoever worked on the character with the fro out to here with the psychedelic colors, they have definitely used cannabis. They have definitely used psychedelics at some point in their life. So prove me wrong if you're the person who worked on that, if you think I'm wrong. But Jenna, tell us about the game. What was it that we were just looking at? It looks really cool. Production values are great. Web3 is always accused of like not having like real gameplay. You showed stuff that, you know, should fare pretty well on like Steam and wherever people consume games.
Yeah. So the game is a roguelite. It's an action roguelite with trading cards and strategic deck building. So when we decided on what game to make, the number one requirement was it had to be fun, and it had to be, you know, a game that would reach the gaming market. So the genre is that it's like Hades in space meets Balatro. And right now it's currently available free to play on Epic in alpha. So we've been developing it since October 2022. It has multiple characters. You can play as your own avatar through our Player Zero integration. It's currently fully off-chain. We have an entire sci-fi universe with 4 sold out NFT collections, a community-owned token, and a platform on our website that connects to the game. And you can collect and do different things. However, the game itself is fully off-chain and playable by anyone with just an email and a password. Yeah.
So Jen, I'll ask possibly a leading question, but why keep the game off-chain today? Why that decision with the gameplay versus kind of building it up around the NFT collections that are out there?
Well, so like my approach to building in markets where you don't know what's going to happen with regulations, or they're moving so quickly that you have to, you know, remain pivotable and flexible until the final hour. I learned that extensively in cannabis. And so I brought that forward to here, and I'm like extremely grateful for it at this moment. So there's a lot of things about the game that make a lot of sense to bring on chain. But as we all know, Web3 gaming has been like this, and you don't know what's going to happen. And we know that our core product is a very good game, and we don't have to force crypto or blockchain into the game. However, we do truly understand the power of it and where it makes the most sense. And we have yet to have to actually plug it into the game. If you saw the trailer and saw Treasure, for example, unfortunately, Treasure shut down their game publishing business, and they were our chain partner for the game. Luckily, we had not integrated anything on Treasure Chain, because if we had, we'd have to be unraveling it and spending loads of money that an indie game developer does not have to spare to kind of figure out the next move. So when it comes to Web3, the most important things I believe that our game would benefit from, and all games would benefit from, is the items, particularly trading cards. The use case for an NFT is extremely strong, and a trading card should be an NFT. It's a digital item. Everyone should be able to trade it. And then payments with stablecoin rails. Like, I think those are my 2 favorite use cases to plug into.
So pay for things with a currency that the player understands is one of the things you've learned, and kick the can down the road on specific chains, and also just user experience. It sounds like we see this across the board. I mean, I should mention, like at Beamable, something that we see a lot with game developers is, particularly if they started like a couple of years ago when some of these so-called gaming chains of the day were giving out a bunch of grants, and then they kind of went sideways and nothing ever happened with them. Suddenly these developers needed to find a new home, which meant transitioning chains, sometimes to a completely different architecture. Maybe they weren't even going to be on a EVM anymore. Like we're seeing people move like from EVM to Solana or EVM to Sui, things like that. So one of the things we wanted to try to do with Beamable as a technology was protect against that, basically future-proof people and abstract things like your economy design and just your item design so that you work within Unity or Unreal, and you're not like really building blockchain integrations, you're just building on top of simple item system. And then if you want to change blockchains, you kind of check off one box saying like, hey, I'm using whatever EVM chain, check the Sui box or the Solana box, and you're on one of those, for example. So we've tried to keep things really, really easy from a tech perspective. So many people have spent an enormous level of effort just struggling with tech, and they're not doing the right thing, which is what I've seen you do in those in the trailer visuals that you just gave, which is focusing on the fun game. Right? Any game developer only really wins because the gameplay itself is first class. There was 19,000 games on Steam last year. Really hard to rise above the noise if you're not a really fundamentally great game. How do you get like let's expand the conversation to this, because I think this is something really key for game developers generally. How do you get at the fun? How are you doing it? What do you do to accelerate that learning process, your velocity? Like, what's your game development lifecycle look like?
Well, we are partnered with Blowfish Studios and have another studio we work with. It's our development studio. They have been game developers and that, but like our WanderLabs team, we've never developed a game. And this industry it's so hard to focus with all the hype cycles of NFTs and then a TGE and then building up to this and then dropping it and then blah, blah, blah. And trying to balance that with game development has been really hard for the last few years. We've definitely been a culprit of getting distracted and not just focusing on game development, because we basically felt we were juggling two products at the same time, you know, the ecosystem and token and then the video game. So yeah, I mean, I think the best way to learn, at least for me personally, is to just go through it and, you know, make sure that you're getting all of the information that you can and, you know, digging into the general gaming world, all of the general platforms and partners, and then also trying to evolve quickly with the Web3 gaming industry that's moving at crazy speeds. So the most important part is to always be able and ready to pivot and make quick decisions. Like the ability we have is a very scrappy, lean indie game team that understands the future of gaming and tech and where it's going. We're able to quickly adapt and change course. However, it's a blessing and a curse, because we've definitely been building this game a little too long, and right now we need to bring it to market and get distribution. And the quickest way to that is the path we're on right now with full focus.
Jenna, I'd love to go back to some of these early NFT collections that you did and kind of take us through that journey as well. Like, tell us about the collections. Did those raise capital for you? I remember back in 2021, like that was the financing model for a lot of studios. Like, launch your NFT collection, use the revenue from it, invest it in creating things. Looks like you, in fact, have been able to do that. So many projects like raised the NFT money, and then they were like, thank you very much. Enjoy your collectible. We're not actually going to build the game that we thought we were, because they didn't do what you did, which is find an actually competent game development team to actually work with them. So congratulations on just sort of like the self-recognition that you would need help, and you got some veterans to help you out. And there's sort of this related question we just got from the audience from Suman. He says, my real question is really, can NFTs replace characters, stickers? I think what they're getting at is that going to become the way that we acquire the content that we use in games and represent ourselves? But to take us through the NFT journey and also how things have changed along the way.
Totally. So we're very uniquely positioned here because a lot of the games that come out in Web3, they launch as a Web3 game. Their NFT collections are fully tied to that. So Nick, who's the creator and an animator by trade and the artist of Wanders, he came up with this idea when NFTs were all JPEGs and there were collections, and basically wanted to make an animated collection because he's an animator. And so he went on Reddit and found like the most upvoted short story writer, Rupert Frogington, and a dev, an anonymous undoxed dev, Emerald, to do the contract, and then partnered with his like musician friend Lando Soundo, and together they wanted to make something different. So basically within 30 days put together Wanderers, OG Wanderers, had no idea what was going to happen from it. None of them ever had any experience with a startup or a business, you know, and they made an NFT collection with music, lore, and animation, and it sold out in 30 minutes and brought in $3 million overnight. So
wow.
A community of 5.
Those were the days. Those were the days. That is not a thing now, is it?
No. And so like there was nothing, like it was just art, and it was launched and people just got pulled into the universe and loved it. And that was how Wanderers in the community was born. So since then, we've launched 3 other collections. We did a free claim for all of the holders called Planet Pass on Polygon in December 2021. So so those are all animated with music. We have 3 full-length music albums that back each of the collections. And then we did another launch, the Wandernauts, which are your characters. So there's 16 Wandernaut characters. And the main premise of the story is there was a wormhole, and the Warp Squad 16 went investigating the wormhole, and they just vanished and disappeared, trying to investigate the wormhole. So now everyone's trying to hash and slash their way in the game as well through the universe in search of the missing Warp Squad 16. And then you can have the endless wormhole loop. But everyone has lore, has music, has animation. What really excites me here is that the metadata is all on chain. So just fast forward 5 years into the future, once like agents and like our whole world can like do things, it can get really fun and weird, and it's all on chain. So it's going to persist on chain no matter what. But with that being said, all of these NFTs were before we even raised money to build the video game. So we formed WanderLabs, raised around with Animoca and GameFi, and started building out the product of the video game itself. This is our IP and our universe, and it lays the groundwork. So the only thing, the 4th NFT collection we dropped was RAM, which was early access to the game and the trading cards in the game. And now you can burn it to pull the cards into the game. So yeah, I think we want to find ways, and we will eventually, as we grow as an ecosystem, to pull the original NFTs into the game. But I think there's a world for everyone, and it doesn't mean they just have to be in the game.
Okay, so you just said agents, and it's wanderers.ai, right? So there's something there about AI. I want to get to that because it's a tradition on this stream to talk about AI in every single stream, basically. I think we failed, Oscar, though. I think maybe only about 90% of them. What do you think? Do we have a metric
97%? Yeah, 97% of all our live streams result in AI conversation for at least 6 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the metric call out there, Oscar. So we have to try to at least hit that for part of this stream. While you're thinking about that, there was another question in the chat. Speaking of NFTs and on-chain competitions and things like that, have the codes dropped. You're talking about the Beamable code. So a bunch of you are here because you're competing on the Beamable leaderboard. Our community is so awesome, Jenna. We point what we internally, you're going to get a little bit of internal Beamable knowledge here, but we call it the Beamable death ray. It's kind of a weird thing to call it because it's actually injects life. But when we point the Beamable death ray, which is our community of like millions of people that have been following us around now for the last few months on any game that's on Beamable, people show up in mass numbers. They buy copies of the game. They Steam wish list it. They buy and mint NFTs. With Pog Digital, people minted 140,000 NFTs when we pointed them towards their project. So this is a community that's so deeply engaged and they really want the platform to succeed. So we love all of you for that. And thanks for going up the leaderboard. We're going to give out the code. If you're tuning in now, you haven't missed it yet. We're going to give out the code. So we will get to it. I promise that you'll get that. But let's return back to Jenna for the time being before I turn back to that. Keep the questions coming, by the way. We love the questions. We've got 800 people that are live viewing this, and I love your questions. So, Jenna, AI, where's it fitting in?
That's a good question. I mean, when we launched Wanderers.ai, it was just the domain, it's not in there right now. However, I think as this world is progressing at not Web3 speeds, like lightning speeds ahead, I think AI fits in when you start, having agents come in and building worlds from everything on chain. And I think IP will eventually move on chain to allow for this. However, we've already put our entire universe and IP on chain. So I get excited thinking about world building and, playing inside the universe and games because there's so much to be had there. And honestly, I can have gut feelings of what I think will happen, but I've given up trying to predict the future and, build for the future and just try to do things in the present because this world is getting crazy.
We're probably not too far away from being able to just that was some really cool animation and art that we were just looking at. We're probably not too far off from just allowing a generative AI to consume that and immediately just instantiates that character. And it looks exactly like it was designed and it interacts with you and uses the metadata that you've got on chain to seed like conversational parameters. And then you can use that in the game. So I'm just spitballing some things that an agent might be able to do with this.
We got excited about vibe coding. So if you go to our website, you can see there's a portal. It's called wanderers.ai/vibe. So you can go in and download a bunch of our assets and remix it to create something through vibe coding. And I just envision this just becoming a bigger thing. And I think it's UGC all day. Like the best UGC you can imagine is where my head goes with comics.
Yeah, I mean,
videos.
When you combine that generative AI with vibe coding, that is the platform that allows a lot of the people who might be building around it to add to it, but maintain aesthetic consistency, even story consistency, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest question is, how do you maintain your brand and identity with the introduction of generative AI? Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the hardest part.
People kind of had the same reaction to NFTs generally early on, though. I remember when we were talking about metaverse back when the term was cool in 2020 before Zuckerberg ruined the word for all of us. I still use the word. I'm going with it. I'm going to be a hipster on metaverse. So I'm just going to stick with it. But they said the same thing. A lot of people said the same criticism, which is, okay, well, now we're going to have all these NFTs that represent the object, and then all these other games are going to consume the NFT, and it's just going to be this like mess of consistency where you go into a game and it's who know, like if it's a kind of game that imports assets and remixes them internally, now we've just got this mess of a world and characters and art and things like that.
True, because that didn't. I think it's really about, you know, the centralized force that's building with it. And you're right. As long as you put the guardrails in place, it's okay to like let it flow.
What are those guardrails though? Like,
I think because we have so many facets of the world already and IP out there. We have 3 full-length music albums. We have 2 short films. We have a bunch of like trailers. We have a whole video game. We have 3 NFT collections, and all of them are animated with music and lore. And like Rupert has written whole worlds and backstories. The most important thing is just loading all of that into a backend, which we attempted with the first pass in the Vibe portal. But I think those are the guardrails. Like, these are the inputs, everything that's already out in the ethos. As long as the inputs all just stay that, I'm pretty sure the guardrails are there.
So what do you think, Oscar? I'm going to pull you into this conversation because the community's rattling your cage or poking the bear or whatever we want to call it. They're demanding Oscar to swoop in with his galaxy brain and connect all these things together. Oscar, I don't know if some of you probably don't even know, Oscar has this community of like, you got like 150,000 people in a generative art community. I don't know. You have something to say about this.
No, we're up to Well, I mean, the community's at 217,000 members, and I see too many. Yeah, there's just too many large, busty waifu images for and that's the main problem with UGC, which I think it's a literal problem, because the concern is when you want to protect the intellectual property, when you want to protect the entirety of what you've created, and then you place the power of creation in someone else's hand, how do you ensure that that everything remains as you intended? How much leverage do you give people? And at a certain point, nobody can really own an experience. So it is a very delicate balancing act, and nobody's figured it out yet. Look at Disney suing Midjourney. Right now, you want to have total control over your intellectual property, but you also want people to have a sense of ownership without legally stealing your shit. So it's incredibly complicated. It'll never be solved, and Rule 34 will always be a thing.
It's a fine balance.
You're getting a lot of fan love today. I don't know what the Snoop comparisons are here in the rap comments, but maybe it's the word cannabis was used early on, and it has brought in the wrong crowd or something. But you guys are the right crowd. You are absolutely the right crowd.
My vices. How dare you assume?
At Flowcana, we flew Snoop in on a helicopter. And he was going to do a Love Cannabis brand, and before he went on stage, he made sure someone drove 2 hours to get him a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then smoked a huge blunt before the talk with our CEO. Is quite
So Crypto's asking maybe a little more pointed question. He's saying, what's your take on vibe coding? I think it benefits people that come from tech background, but just for the average user, I don't see the use. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure I agree with that assumption. Feels like people that haven't programmed before are benefiting from it. Jenna, what do you think? And then I saw Oscar raise his hand, so he's going to weigh in on this too.
I did as well. I think I definitely think right now it's like a bit of an endeavor. And if you're not super tech savvy, it feels overwhelming and a lot to do. However, as the tools get better, I think vibe coding will be much more promptable and easy, and you'll be able to use the different inputs better. And the average person will be vibe coding all day pretty soon. I just think it's like a little clunky right now.
Yeah, new tech is usually clunky. Oscar, you raised your hand. What do we see with vibe coding?
I've long been an advocate for the concept of vibe coding, and the point of reference I use is if you look at Star Trek: The Next Generation and how people would walk onto the holodeck and they would describe an experience, and then that would take shape. There's a reason your cell phone looks the way it does. It's because of Star Trek: The Next Generation and the pads that they used. Ultimately, if you've ever designed any software, been in a project, made a game, whatever the case may be, it's the consensus between multiple people arriving towards an end goal. And in my idealized world, an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old should be able to describe to one another the exact same interactive experience, the same way that you can describe an image. And a machine that can parse a natural language conversation should, through some pushing and prodding and poking and guidance, arrive at 90% overlap, like that Venn diagram. Like if you describe Pac-Man and I describe Pac-Man, at some point with enough abstraction, you can kind of land in the same general vicinity. I think that vibe coding shouldn't depreciate the value of the technician or the engineer or the whatever you want to call them, but there is a huge gap which has kept the idea guy from making a positive contribution and has made the idea guy the butt of every joke when it comes to software development, especially game development. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but implementation is what matters. But when the idea guy can actually like vomit up a concept and have an approximation or an abstraction of that actually land, then that's going to be transformative. And we're not there yet, but there's enough examples that demonstrate it is a viable path. And we just have too many compute cycles that are being wasted right now that could go towards assembling much better versions of, what we have right now. So it's just a matter of time, and programmers don't freak out yet, but bone up.
Well, if you want to probe deep, I love the holodeck reference. I mean, I think it was 3 years ago, wrote this article about how we're building the holodeck. That's what the metaverse really is. If you kind of combine generative AI and speaking worlds into existence, kind of voice prompt into the text prompt system, and using that to then generate all of the content that you might see around yourself in a world. Oscar, I'm blanking on the name. Maybe you can track it down while we're talking here. But when it was after GDC, I brought in a founder from one of these A16Z speedrun startups who was creating this generative AI vibe coding platform for kids. It was kind of like Roblox, but the kids could talk, and it interprets what you said, and it would actually bring it, like, it's the closest thing I've seen actually to a like that holodeck like experience. So, all right, we're getting a little off topic, but if you find it, Oscar, I think it might be useful to just kind of bring that in for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There was an earlier question. There was an earlier question here that I'm going to pull up about onboarding of non-crypto players. And you kind of answered the question earlier around this question, which is, well, start by not engaging them, build a game. Your game is available for alpha now on Epic Game Store. You don't have to have a wallet. You don't have to have heard about blockchain. You just have to be someone who's looking to play a fun game and be in early and enjoy it. But it sounds like someday you're going to start mashing those two together. You will have this aspect of, the blockchain integration. How do you think about that? And what is the life cycle of your player? And I know that part of your strategy is to kind of kick the can down the road and not have to think about it until you have to. But given what you know today, where do you think the industry is going on that versus, and how are you thinking about that connective tissue with those players so that they don't have to learn anything that would slow down the game experience?
Totally. I think it has to be seamless. It has to be frictionless. Nobody needs to know that they're interacting on chain. That's like a hard requirement. We are definitely getting there, and we could do it like that already today. I think where this industry is going is, this is tech. and this is infrastructure. I don't even want to say the word Web3 game. Like, it's a game. And in the future,
Web3, you know what? Quick aside, I want to fire the chief marketing officer of blockchain for coming up with terms like Web3. Like, will you please stop like siloing? Yeah, whoever has that, I don't know who that person is because there's no CEO of blockchain, there's no CMO of blockchain, but the godlike persona that is that person's collection of all of culture that through them channels this energy and comes up with words, you should be fired. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Okay, I agree. Jenna, go back.
It's like, we will continue going off on tangents, but we need to be moving, like Web3, like needs to be infrastructure, seamless backend infrastructure. And we need to start with stable coins, not with volatile speculative assets. That's how it's going to be mass adopted. And I think we are literally, after the last 4 years, finally at that juncture. Like, I feel it with gaming, with stable coins, with everything. But back to the question, like, we started the game only targeting, like, we've only ever marketed on crypto Twitter. We've only ever had Web3 players leading into, a TGE. And we've had 7,000 people play the game, average play time of 90 minutes. But the market is just, it's not a market. It's way too small. So we are going to try to onboard as many gamers as possible. I think right now, what I've learned is cross-platform, and the way our game plays, it can be hyper casual. It can also be a lot deeper. We're currently on PC, but because of the way we've built our systems, the wallets, all of that can be in the background, and you can connect multiple chains, multiple wallets to your Wander ID. And they can be auto-created in the background if you don't have one. So you don't even need to know you're using it. And on top of that, because all of this is built on our platform, on our website, with our own servers, it can plug into Epic. It can plug into Steam. We are in the process of building out a WebGL port, so you'll be able to play on our website. We have some exciting partnerships coming up where, you'll learn more when you see it, but we can, like, this game plays well on mobile, on WebGL, on PC. It could even go on Switch and console. So we just want to make sure we're building towards cross-platform play, and that a player can like jump in and out wherever they feel like, and it works, and you can trade your assets.
Oscar, I mean, another relevant connection there. We're making so much connective tissue just in this video, but we had on the founder of that startup that's working on Web GPU for Unreal Engine. So you mentioned WebGL, but WebGL is kind of slow. I mean, don't want to get super technical here, but like Web GPU modernizes that whole tech stack so you can actually deliver the frame rate of a modern GPU based graphics engine through the web browser. So like you really will be able to deliver like a Unity or an Unreal Engine game through web browser. You can actually do it now. It's just not particularly well deployed, and games that are using it haven't gotten out there yet. But it sounds like you're in that trajectory, making it possible to play online.
Yeah, we're in Unity 6.
Yep.
And on our way to the WebGL port, but I'm not technical at all. So like, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. We got an assessment, and it seems like everything will port over pretty good. It's just the assets that require a bit of load time.
All right, I have to give out the code now for everybody who's been paying attention. Is everybody ready for the drum roll? We need an actual Oscar. Can you get a drum? We need to have play a drum or something when we do this.
We have a soundboard over here. Hang on.
Soundboard, like let's update the production values of the show already. Give me a break. Okay.
Let me get it.
It's time for the code.
Soundboard.
It's time for the code. what many of you are waiting for, because you are eager to go up that Beamable leaderboard, earn your spot in one of our very coveted airdrop tickets. Okay. The code for today is NOMAD, NOMAD. And I know a lot of you don't speak English as a first language. Sometimes you don't hear the letters. We write it on the bottom right there so you can see it. It's kind of going around the ticker. Here, I'm going to track it. Okay, see? NOMAD, NOMAD. Type that word in. How do you do it? You got to go to our Discord. You have to be registered for Discord before you try this. It's tough to do in the 2-minute window if you've never done it before, but get into the Beamable network, Discord, register, validate yourself, show us that you're not a bot. Once you're in there, type /claim nomad, and you're going to score the points for today. So thanks all of you in the community. There's 1,250 of you watching live, and hope that every single one of you goes and claims that spot right now. All right, so we've got a question from Crypto here. This always comes up. I feel like game developers never get tired of answering it. And I won't even make you do the top 3 if you don't want to give 3, but what is the game or games that kind of inspired you to take this universe and this art that you've created and start building a game on top of it? Where did the influence come for you?
Well, I am not the one that came up with the game idea. So I can tell you my personal favorite game, because I was much of a gamer as a kid. Mm-hmm. I don't play that many games right now. I'm sorry. Don't kill me. But I loved FIFA. So FIFA was my jam. I was a soccer player my whole life. So I loved that game. The only other game I play now is Duolingo because I like gamified learning languages. But when it comes to Wanderers, I think the biggest inspirations of Wanderers, and it was, the Nick's inspiration. One of his favorite games was Hades and Diablo and Spire. So
I can see Hades coming through the 2D art style for sure.
Yeah, it's like Hades in space meets Diablo, Slay the Spire. Like it's kind of very much influenced by that.
Very cool. Very cool. But I guess we have to go back to the game system. I love the inspiration of that kind of Hades art style, but then we saw like the card collection, the rogue-lite aspect. So like everything is a new experience and you have to be a little strategic about kind of how you build up your character through that. I'm curious how that plays in too. Like, is that card selection piece, do you see that as tied into the Web3 collection mechanic at some point? Is that where, like, is there a deck building aspect to that?
Yes.
Where does that play out?
That, like, our game designer, Miles, he came up with the trading card twist, because we're not just trying to make the same kind of game as what's already been done, like Hades. We need to find games and genres and make unique, new versions of them that make sense with Web3. So the deck building element, you collect the cards, and before you even start your runs, you will go to the card terminal at home base and you will select your deck. So it's very strategic because I don't know how many cards there are, maybe like 18 or something cards in a deck that you select. And then you jump into the game and you go on runs, but you don't know what 3 cards are going to come up throughout the runs that you can pick from. So and also the game is extremely random. We're making some final design updates right now where you don't know what level and planet you're going to be on next. And so you need to collect the cards you want, optimize your deck. You might want 1 card all the time. So you're going to try to collect as many of those cards as possible, so the odds of it coming during your run show up. But yeah, I mean, like the strategic deck building and randomness element is very much our like real Web3 element that makes so much sense, that just, makes this a new kind of game. And it adds more of a collectible element and randomness to it. So we wanted to make sure it wasn't a pay to play, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not pay to play, play to win, pay to win. So the randomness element is what really sets it apart.
So let's drill into that a little bit more. So, you know, that's sort of the base assumption anytime you have these item economies where that's the business model, that people figure you have to go buy the power items to be able to get through the game. Sounds like, if I interpret what you just said, you've taken a different approach where it's almost more about the deck composition sort of is more like player creativity and how they might want to experience the world, the how rather than the if and the pinch points. Am I kind of hearing you correctly on that?
Yeah, but because they're like a deck is so large, like someone could go and buy, you know, the best card ever, like all of them, you know, and but it does
make a power deck.
Yeah, they could have a power deck, that's for sure, but it definitely gives players freedom and creativity, and it has this element of, you know, excitement and randomness because you just don't know what you're going to get or what planet or boss you're going to come at. So I think that's what keeps everyone like on their feet and coming back and playing more.
What, based on what you know about game development today, like you've been working on this now, it sounds like about 4 years since kind of like 2021 timeline starting up. What about people that are starting today and have a game idea? What advice would you pass along to them? And what is it also just for yourself right now in this market? Because it's been a really challenging year or even 2 years for game developers. Not a lot of capital left. You can't mint NFT collections and take in $3 million right now. VCs don't have much money left. Publishers are protecting their established titles. Now, I know plenty of developers that are doing a great job. They've kind of hunkered down. There are people succeeding, but what does the market look like for you right now, and what should other people know?
Yeah, the last year has been extremely tough as a game developer, as a, you know, NFT universe. I think for everyone outside of this, it's also been tough. But the fact that we're still here trying to get the game to market is, I'm a bull. We could have quit a 1,000 times, but it's hard. Game development, it's very hard. We started developing the game 2.5, 3 years ago. My learnings, my advice are focus. If you really want to build a game and you have like this burning desire and passion to do it, 100% do it. I am all for that. I support it. I encourage you to focus and like have a very clear plan and stick to it, and don't get distracted and keep adding things. And the quickest you can bring the game to market and start building with the community and iterating on it together is better, because the game market is so saturated. Distribution is really hard. Like trying to even figure out distribution right now has been hard, tough. And I've been doing business for over 15 years. So distribution is extremely hard. But with vibe coding, AI, like you can build a game right now and bring it to market, at least in like an MVP state, an early access state, pretty quickly. So try to get there and iterate and evolve and build a community and build with the community, because that's going to be the best way, I think, to position it, unless you're a large, you know, studio that has a lot of funding, because good luck getting funding for a video game right now. I've tried.
But yeah, when you say build with the community, can you elaborate on that? What does that really mean in sort of like day-to-day, week-to-week practice?
Yeah, I think it can mean a lot of things. It just depends on how available you want to be. But literally, start building a game. Once you have an MVP and can get it out there, start a Discord, start posting things in Discord and asking the community for their feedback, having them like help steer like different aspects of the game, give them surveys. That's what we've done. But it's hard. It's a hard balance because you also need to be able to move quickly and make decisions, but just make sure the community, if you have a community building, that they feel heard and that they have some contributions that they can like put inside of the game. It doesn't have to be everything, but I think you'll be the best judge of what that could be.
I'm glad you said that. One of the aspects of success that I see amongst a lot of game developers is they really build a flywheel around high velocity building. Like their own team can build fast, which means usually eliminating a lot of the technological barriers that mire down a team. That's why I created Beamable, so that people didn't have to build all this boring plumbing that if you don't do it right, ends up your game just implodes when you launch. So we wanted to take that off the table. Just like 3D engines, like you don't have to build your own 3D engine anymore. Unity and Unreal are both great, and you can build a great game in them. You don't have to do that anymore. So like if you're considering any of those things, by the way, like the build it yourself, you are competing with literally tens of thousands of really capable game teams that are going to focus on the fun. And in game development, you kind of have to define where your obsession is. And if the obsession is anything other than making a great game, and you're like, I get it, I love tech too, but like if that's not the thing that you really want to focus all your energy on, can't say it won't be done. There are counterexamples, right? Like we have Steam today because Valve thought it would be amazing to create Steam as a distribution for Half-Life. And I remember being forced to install Steam for Half-Life back in the day. And I was like, this is a pain in the ass. I can't stand that they're making me do this. And I put up with it. And okay, what happened with Steam? It now rules the world of PC gaming, basically. So it can be done, but you are a very, very small minority of people that will be able to do that. So focus on the fun, high velocity building, focused on the game experience as opposed to the enabling tech, and then be able to hear feedback. And the feedback can come from your community, can come from your own players, can come from also data, like observing how people play in the game. Like people say one thing and sometimes play the game in a different way. So like triangulating around all of these quantitative as well as qualitative data sources and using it as part of a very regular cadence where you ship every day, every week. Like constant shipping is how games are built, how good games are built. That's my thesis on game development. It sounds like that's what you're doing, Jenna. Jenna, we're winding down to the end of our hour. I'd love you to take us home here. What else should people know about your game, about your company, your studio? Where can they find you? And what parting thoughts do you want to share with our community here?
Yeah, I think this conversation has been really great, enlightening. Feels like we could talk all day about all of these things. But yeah, if you're interested in checking out Wanderers, I encourage you to download the game, go play on Epic. It's free to play. Check out our YouTube channel, watch our short films, and yeah, we should be coming out with some exciting announcements pretty soon on ways to play the game beyond Epic and coming out with a battle pass and things like that. So join our community, and yeah, thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you to all of you who have shown up live, and also all of you who are watching in replay. But if you're watching in replay, show up live. You saw people ask a lot of cool questions. We probably wouldn't have brought up cannabis a bunch of extra times if it wasn't for you. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about NFTs, game development, all that stuff. Come and join the live conversation, because that's what makes it really fun for all of us. Thank you again, Jenna. This has been fun.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Until next time, everybody, you've been watching the game development live stream, the Web3 game development live stream. Until next time, we'll see you.